plea by doctors in Libya for that type of blood. So there are a group of 130 Egyptian doctors who are making their way now from Cairo and Alexandria to the border with 1,000 bags of blood, as well as other much-needed medical equipment in order to try and relieve the suffering of those on the other side of the border. Obviously, though, the fact that there is some sort of lawlessness, there is violence on the other side of the border, it is a dangerous situation there, and the fact that there is no protection for these people is putting even the volunteers' lives at risk. But the people in Egypt say that it is their duty, just as they've been able to achieve some sort of freedom, as many of them have been telling me, that they must go and help who they describe as their brethren on the other side of the border, surely.
OK, Jamal, for the moment, thanks very much indeed for that. Jamal Al-Shial at the Libyan border with Egypt there. So a lot of developments inside Libya over the past 24 hours. Lawrence Lee has the latest.
The latest appearance on Libyan television by Muammar Gaddafi was designed to shake off rumours that he'd fled and was still in charge. He said he was in Tripoli, though the place he was filmed in was anonymous. He didn't refer to the protests, though he described the international media as dogs for the coverage of the unrest. All the same, it's not the international media which is now accusing him potentially of crimes against humanity. It's the United Nations which has said his military fired on protesters from either helicopters or warplanes, along with numerous reports from the ground, which have said that the gunfire has been mixed with heavy artillery. The government denies it, but two Air Force colonels who flew their jets to Malta to defect have alleged that they were ordered to fire on their own people from the air. The head of the United Nations, like many other world leaders, has insisted the violence against the protesters has to stop.
Libyan authorities have been firing at demonstrators from the warplanes and helicopters. This is unacceptable. This must stop immediately.
Web video has come out which claims to show black African mercenaries in Tripoli. Once again, it's denied by the government, but reports from the Libyan capital say the mercenaries fired indiscriminately on the protesters. This group of Egyptian migrant workers who fled Libya for their own safety told the same story.
They are not Libyans, they are Africans, mercenaries. They're shooting people who are trying to protect themselves.
The Arab League and the United Nations are both meeting on Tuesday amid increasing criticism from Libyan society that the international response hasn't been anything like strong enough so far. Several Libyan diplomats have resigned or are now openly criticising their government as being indefensible to the international community.
I don't speak to Colonel Gaddafi. The only thing I tell him on the air now, he has to get out. Either he get out or the Libyan people will kick him out anyway.
As things stand, Colonel Gaddafi himself appears entirely defiant in the face of all of this. There's so much violence that any chance of dialogue has disappeared. He and the protesters seem to have decided that this is now a fight to the death. Lawrence Lee, AlJazeera.
Now, the United Nations Human Rights Chief, Navi Pillay, has said that the attacks on the civilian population inside Libya may amount to crimes against humanity. Let's talk more about this with Mona Rishmawi in Geneva. She's the legal advisor to the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. Good to have you with us. There are some extremely serious allegations, aren't there, of weapons being used against unarmed protesters?
We're extremely worried about the reports that we are hearing, the use of planes, the use of snipers, the use of gunshots, the use of what I can call as hired guns to basically go against the demonstrators. The indiscriminate attacks against the civilians is extremely serious and can lead to allegations of crimes against humanity. What we are looking for right now is for this situation to stop now. It must stop. Life must be spared. People, civilians must be protected. They cannot go. We cannot go on in these killings like that. It's an extremely serious situation that is unfolding in front of our eyes today.
Have you had any response from the Libyan authorities to these allegations and to your calls for this violence to stop?
all what I can tell you is that they are aware of what we are saying. They are aware of the allegations that we are making. We are using reports that we are hearing from Libya itself, and we are basically talking to the various actors in as the events are unfolding, and it is extremely serious right now. We are talking about hundreds of people perhaps killed and injured, and people are fleeing the country. Is extremely serious.
We know that Libya's deputy ambassador to the United Nations has appealed for a no-fly zone over Libya because he says he fears a genocide. Do you think it could go that far?
I think any measures that can be taken to protect the civilians in Libya is extremely important at this stage. What we are seeing right now is people are being attacked in a very disproportionate way. If the allegations that we are hearing are accurate, that there are airplanes, that there are snipers, that there are people shooting indiscriminately at civilians, what we hear from hospitals, the injured, the death in these hospitals, and people cannot cope, it has to stop. It has to stop. It's very important that the international community unites in this response for the protection of civilians in Libya.
Unite in what way? What kind of measures do you think should be taken?
I think right now we have a number of intergovernmental bodies that are considering the situation in Libya, and I think what is very important is that they show a united front and they give a clear message that the violations must stop right now. After that, we need to look at an international inquiry. We need these very serious allegations about what is going on in Libya right now must be investigated. There must be an international inquiry on what is going on. And if the allegations could amount to crimes against humanity, which we fear they are, then there has to be prosecution and justice.
Do you think it's likely that anyone in the Libyan hierarchy will be held to account for what's happening in Libya?
Well, what we learned from situations in all over the world right now is that allegations of gross violations of human rights, allegations of crimes against humanity that are unfolding in front of our eyes today are extremely serious. The international community clearly cannot allow for impunity for these kind of allegations, and I really think it's very important that this situation stops now. This situation must stop. And this use of indiscriminate use of force, this use of attacks against demonstrators must stop immediately.
Okay, Mona Rishmawi, thank you very much indeed for that from the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. Okay, let's get some further reaction now. Professor Melahdin Ihsanoglu, the Secretary-General of the Organization of the Islamic Conference, joins me now from Jeddah. Good to have you with us. First of all, can you give me the reaction of the Muslim world towards what is happening in Libya? We have had reports of Muslim leaders urging followers to unite against Gaddafi.
Well, let me say that as OIC, we issued a new statement today. We have been following the matter since the events erupted, and